Good evening. On a day that will be remembered for generations, the world awoke to a reality that few could have imagined. The sun rose over the US-Mexico border, casting long shadows over a landscape that would soon be transformed by an extraordinary event. The United States-Mexico border was abruptly and completely shut down, an event without precedent in modern history. What was once a bustling gateway between two nations became, in an instant, a line that could not be crossed. The closure, triggered by a severe and as yet undisclosed security threat, sent shockwaves through both nations. News outlets scrambled to cover the unfolding situation, while authorities rushed to secure every crossing point. For many, the border is more than just a line on a map, it is a lifeline. Families, businesses, and entire communities depend on the daily flow of people and goods. The sudden closure disrupted lives on both sides, leaving millions in a state of uncertainty. For decades, the border has been a vital artery for commerce and culture, linking two countries with shared destinies. Every day, thousands cross for work, education, and to visit loved ones, weaving a tapestry of connection that spans generations. The sudden halt left policymakers and citizens scrambling to understand the implications. Government officials convened emergency meetings, while families anxiously awaited updates, unsure of when or if the border would reopen. The impact was immediate and far-reaching. Small business owners who relied on cross-border customers faced devastating losses. Students who commuted daily found their education interrupted, and medical patients were left wondering how they would access critical care. The border, once a symbol of cooperation and opportunity, became a stark barrier overnight. Armed guards and locked gates replaced the usual flow of travelers, underscoring the gravity of the situation. This incident exposed the fragile balance between national security and economic interdependence. The sight of cargo trucks lined up, unable to move, was a stark reminder of how deeply the two nations rely on each other. As details of the threat remained secret, uncertainty gripped the region. People checked their phones for news, hoping for answers that never seemed to come. People living and working along the border were caught off guard, their routines upended in an instant. Families were separated, workers left idle, and the sense of normalcy vanished. Border crossing points became scenes of confusion and anxiety. Travelers, some with urgent reasons to cross, pleaded with officers for information, while officials struggled to maintain order. Overnight, vibrant border towns turned eerily silent, their streets deserted and businesses shuttered. The hum of daily life was replaced by an uneasy quiet. The shutdown was a powerful reminder of how quickly geopolitical realities can shift. What seemed unthinkable just hours before had become the new normal. It forced a re-evaluation of security protocols and the risks of relying on a single point of access. As the world watched, leaders on both sides faced difficult questions about the future of the border and the delicate balance between safety and connection. The security response was swift and overwhelming, catching many by surprise. Within minutes, the border was transformed into a scene of intense activity as emergency vehicles raced to strategic points and armed patrols took up positions. The urgency in the air was unmistakable, signaling that this was no ordinary situation. Armed personnel and federal agencies fortified every crossing, creating an impenetrable line. Barricades were erected, and checkpoints were reinforced with additional layers of security, making it clear that no unauthorized movement would be tolerated. The border zone transformed into a heavily monitored area, more reminiscent of a high-stakes thriller than daily life. Floodlights bathed the landscape in harsh white light, and surveillance cameras tracked every movement, leaving no corner unobserved. Drones and helicopters patrolled the skies, their constant hum a reminder of the heightened alert. On the ground, major highways leading to the border became gridlocked, as vehicles were stopped and searched, adding to the sense of chaos and urgency. The sight of heavily armed guards shocked many residents. For those living nearby, the familiar landscape was suddenly unrecognizable, replaced by a militarized zone that felt both intimidating and surreal. Speculation about the threat's nature ran wild, with rumors spreading quickly among locals and on social media. Despite the growing anxiety, officials offered few details, leaving the public to wonder what danger might be lurking just out of sight. This secrecy fueled public anxiety and media frenzy. News outlets scrambled for information while anxious citizens gathered around televisions and phones, desperate for updates and reassurances that never seemed to come. The militarization of the border highlighted the tension between safety and openness. Families were separated, travelers stranded, and the usual flow of life was brought to a sudden halt, all in the name of national security. It showed the extreme measures a nation might take to protect itself. even if it meant disrupting daily routines and creating an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. The response underscored the ever-present risks that can surface when national security is threatened, reminding everyone that in moments of crisis the balance between freedom and safety can shift in an instant. The economic fallout was immediate and severe. Almost overnight, the pulse of commerce slowed to a crawl, leaving business owners and workers in a state of shock and uncertainty. The sudden halt sent ripples through every sector, from bustling city centers to rural communities that depended on steady trade. Daily trade worth over $1 billion ground to a halt. Highways that once bustled with the movement of goods became parking lots for stranded trucks, their cargoes waiting in vain for clearance. The silence at border crossings was deafening, a stark contrast to the usual hum of activity. Industries like automotive manufacturing, reliant on cross-border logistics, were hit hard. Assembly lines stopped mid-production and warehouses filled with unsent parts. Workers, uncertain about their next paycheck, watched as their livelihoods were put on hold. Supply chains collapsed, factories paused, and financial losses mounted. The ripple effect was felt far beyond the factory floor, impacting suppliers, transporters, and entire communities that depended on these industries. Perishable goods spoiled installed trucks, deepening the crisis. Farmers and distributors watched helplessly as fresh produce became unsellable, leading to both economic and environmental losses. The agricultural sector faced food shortages and soaring prices. Consumers found empty shelves at markets while farmers struggled to find buyers for their crops, creating a disconnect between supply and demand. Small businesses lost their customer base overnight, facing an uncertain future. Many local shops, already operating on thin margins, were forced to close their doors, unsure if they would ever reopen. The shutdown exposed the vulnerabilities of an economy dependent on open borders. What once seemed like a seamless flow of goods and people was revealed to be fragile, easily disrupted by unforeseen events. It became clear that global interconnection is still susceptible to regional shocks. The world watched as a single disruption sent shockwaves through international markets, highlighting the risks of over-reliance on any one route or region. The incident urged stakeholders to diversify supply chains and plan for disruptions. Businesses, governments, and communities began rethinking their strategies, determined to build resilience and ensure that the next crisis would not catch them unprepared. The human toll of the shutdown was profound. Families were abruptly separated, daily routines shattered. For many, the border was a lifeline to loved ones and livelihoods. Workers and students found themselves stranded, jobs and education in jeopardy. Patients needing medical care were cut off from essential treatments. The disruption revealed the deep interdependence of border communities. These regions, defined by blended cultures and economies, faced an identity crisis. The closure was more than logistical. It was existential. The experience highlighted the need for policies that consider social and emotional realities. Communities began searching for ways to preserve vital human connections. The closure fractured the collective identity of border communities. Regions once thriving as cultural melting pots now faced a void, both tangible and psychological. Festivals, family gatherings, and community events became insular and incomplete. The border, once a gateway, now underscored separation. The interruption exposed vulnerabilities in communities reliant on fluid movement. Residents re-examined what it meant to belong to these hybrid regions. Local leaders sought ways to maintain connections, leveraging technology and advocacy. The experience underscored the resilience and adaptability of these communities. The shutdown triggered significant political and diplomatic fallout. In the U.S., it intensified debates over border security and immigration. Proponents saw it as necessary. Critics pointed to economic and social costs. U.S.-Mexico relations were strained, highlighting power imbalances. The unilateral closure raised questions about partnership and collaboration. Internationally, concerns grew over the reliability of North American trade. The incident underscored the complexities of managing borders in a security-focused era. Policymakers faced renewed pressure to balance security with economic and social stability. The shutdown's impact reached specialized sectors as well. Scientific collaborations and joint research projects were abruptly halted. Environmental monitoring and wildlife management suffered setbacks. The fragility of cross-border cooperation in science became clear. Cultural and artistic exchanges were canceled, depriving communities of enrichment. The arts, vital for cross-border understanding, faced indefinite delays. These disruptions illustrated the far-reaching effects of geopolitical events. The need for resilient frameworks to protect collaboration became evident. The shutdown exposed major logistical weaknesses. Highways and transport hubs were overwhelmed, revealing gaps in preparedness. Agencies struggled with coordination, causing delays and confusion. The event was a wake-up call for better emergency planning and infrastructure. The psychological impact left residents and businesses feeling vulnerable. Communities began exploring new ways to sustain their economies and cultures. The closure became a pivotal moment, emphasizing the need for resilience. Lessons learned will shape future border management and preparedness.